Well, let's join our diplomatic editor, James Bays, in Geneva. And James, no guest list has in fact been published, so there's real confusion, isn't there, about exactly who has been invited to these talks on Friday?
Real confusion, and we are literally having to try and speak to all of the key players to see whether they've got an invitation or not. And it's clearly proving very controversial who's been invited and who's not being invited. Let me go back to the beginning, Felicity, because it is complicated. Remind you, this is the process for these talks, was called the Vienna process, series of meetings in Vienna. During those meetings in Vienna, they decided that Saudi Arabia would be given the job of coordinating the opposition. So Saudi Arabia did that, series of conferences in Saudi Arabia. They came up with the so-called Riyadh list. And those on the list include some of the main fighting groups in Syria among the opposition. They are concerned because then the UN Security Council passed a resolution which said the UN would have the final decision on invitations, and Russia said it wasn't happy with the Riyadh list. Staffan de Mistura has said he wants the widest representation possible. So the Riyadh list say we're the real opposition, no one else should be invited. Staffan de Mistura has clearly invited other opposition members because Al Jazeera has spoken to them. Controversial too because of what about the Kurds and who would be invited representing the Kurds. Turkey deeply concerned about a Kurdish group called the PYD. They're the one who are very active militarily in northern Syria, been fighting ISIL, even working alongside the US military, but not liked by the rest of the opposition, who say they're not really at any point fighting the Assad regime. So what has de Mistura done about the PYD? Well, it seems he's not invited them, because in the last few minutes, Al Jazeera has spoken to Saleh Muslim, who is the PYD leader. He's actually already here in Switzerland for the talks, but he has not got an invitation. And what's really interesting here is that he's also with some of the other members of the opposition who aren't on the Riyadh list, people who have got invitations from de Mistura, and some of them are saying if he's not invited, they're not going. So really getting very, very controversial.
Very controversial, very complicated, lots of confusion. Does it mean that the talks might be in danger of not taking place or getting underway on Friday then?
Well, Staffan de Mistura, when he spoke to press 24 hours ago, he said he expected there'll be a lot of drama. He said there'll be walk-ins, walk-outs. Well, I think some of those are going to take place even before the talks start. And the really big decision, which we need to wait for in a few hours, is those members of the opposition, including some of the key fighting groups who were on that Riyadh list. Are they going to come to these talks? They say they're going to decide at some point on Wednesday. That will be important because without some of these key groups who are the ones who are actually fighting the Assad regime on the ground, then you wonder what these talks could achieve.